Check, check, check. Well, good morning, everybody. I think it's your headphones. Yeah, I think you're good now. Good, you're good. Okay, no, test. No, you're good. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to start about 1 minute late. Thank you, Vice Chair. I'm just joking. That being said, I'd like to acknowledge that we're located on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation, the culture and presence who have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. We do have regrets from Councillor DeRoche today. At this point, I'll get our wonderful coordinator to do roll call.
Councillor Bradley?
Here.
Councillor DeRose?
Here.
Councillor Devash? Councillor Devine?
Here.
Councillor Dudas?
Present.
Councillor Gower?
Here.
Councillor Johnson?
Here.
Councillor Lowe?
Here.
Councillor Luloff?
Present.
Councillor Troster?
Here.
Vice Chair Kitts?
Here.
And Chair Tierney?
Here. Thank you very much.
Quorum.
Thank you very much, Coordinator. At this point, we have no declarations of interest. Do we have confirmation of minutes? Thursday, the 28th of March, 2024. Are these carried? Thank you. I'll just go through the agenda clearing. We have a couple of items. We have the minor amendments to the right-of-way bylaw. I know it's been circulated. I've spoken with many people. We do have written correspondence from Jason from GOBA that is on the drive, if you did not know that already. We do have a small presentation if you wish to have it today. Is there any member that wishes to have the presentation, or have you done the necessary reading and we can simply carry this item? Certainly. Did you want to go ahead and just do it now if it's question?
Sure. Yeah. I just have a couple questions for staff. Oh, sorry, you're not coming over here. The issue of non-compliant driveways is kind of a big thing in Centertown because so many of these houses have been grandfathered in. So I just have a question. I have two questions. On page 7, in relation to the failure to obtain a private approach permit, I'm just wondering if staff could clarify who will be held responsible for the non-compliant changes in this circumstance. Does the current bylaw hold the contractor responsible versus the homeowner? I'm just wondering how it works.
Chair, the intent is to have the option to do both, because often staff show up at these situations and the contractor is long gone and we're left dealing with the homeowner, and that doesn't give us the necessary tools to address the situation with the homeowner. So the intent necessarily isn't to go after the homeowner, but to have the option and the opportunity available if that's all we have.
Okay, great. And then this is not directly related, but it's not unusual for someone to take possession of a home and not be aware of their right-of-way responsibilities. They may not be aware that a parking spot that they have is technically illegal. You know, if it was created after 2007. Is there a responsibility for realtors to inform home buyers of these factors? Like, or does council have the ability to compel them to do so? Because this is what I consistently hear, which is like, we bought this house, this old driveway has been here forever. Nobody ever told us that it was a problem, and now you're telling us it's a problem.
Perhaps I'd turn to legal in relation to the authority for council to direct realtors, but maybe I can just speak beforehand, if you don't mind, Taffy. That, to your point, Councillor, we are looking at a number of different outreach opportunities to make the real estate community aware of what the rules are and looking to educate accordingly to make sure that that information is passed on to homeowners so we don't find these situations playing out.
Okay, that's great, because, you know, there's entire streets in Centertown, some of which there's just everyone parking on their driveway. And I mean, I do think it's fair and reasonable to do the backtracking to 2007, because it's, frankly, when the rule said 1964, most homeowners had no record, they had no idea. And so we did a bylaw amendment on one small block in my ward when the sewer work was happening, so that their properties could be returned to the state that they were in. But I just think this clarity would be really helpful going forward, because we obviously don't want to see new non-compliant driveways. So I do think home buyers should, and renters should, be aware of their obligations. Thank you.
Great, and thank you, Rob, for the clarifying on that question, and I completely concur. So I thank you for that. I don't see the need for a presentation, and at this point, is this item carried? Great. We do have 4.2 on the agenda, which is the cycling facility on Maitland Avenue Bridge over the 417. We do have a small presentation if required. I know a lot of people I've spoken to already, including Councillor DeRose, which is in support, but unfortunately he's not available today. We do have one speaker. I'm going to ask William. He's no stranger to the community. Is William online? Or Diane. It could be Diane as well. Diane Harper, William Van Geist.
Yes, just joining now.
Okay, if we carry this item, do you still feel the need to go ahead and give a 5-minute presentation today?
We just have a couple of points on suggestions of how we would like to see it go forward.
Okay, so I'm just going to hold the item then, and we'll go back to that because I still have other part of the agenda to clear. We do have the office's city clerk, the status update, Transportation Committee inquiries and motions. Is that item received? We do have, I'm going to skip, I've had a request from Councillor Leeper. If we could, and please do not, we don't have to read this again. On behalf of Glenn Gower, Councillor Gower actually read this in last time. It's 2 pages of fun. You've probably seen it. We heard it at last meeting. Staff, just to confirm, you're okay with the motion that is being brought forward from Councillor Gower on behalf of Councillor Lieber?
Yes, we are, Chair.
Great. So this little item, is this item carried? Great. There you go, Councillor Lieber. You're off the hook. And of course, we have notices of motion and inquiries, which we'll go back to. I'll circle back to the one item on the agenda. And that item would be the Maitland Bridge. And I think it's Diane. Diane's requested to use the 5 minutes, and you're no stranger. You have 5 minutes and the floor is yours. Oh, forgive me. Staff does have a brief presentation if members of committee wish to see that presentation. No, I'm not seeing any. Good. So you guys can stay still and, oh, sorry, Councillor Kavanagh.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind having the presentation shown.
Okay, so we'll ask Diana you're going to have to sit in the holding room. We'll have staff come down and give the brief presentation.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chair and Committee. I'm Cal Hackla. I'm the Acting Program Manager of the Active Transportation Planning Group, and I'm joined by Andrew Egan, and I'll just pass it to Andrew, who will give the presentation today.
Thank you, Cal. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, Committee. My name is Andrew Egan. I'm a Project Manager with the Planning, Development, and Building Services Department, and I'll be providing a brief presentation today to support the motion being discussed this morning for the cycling facilities on the Maitland Avenue Bridge over Highway 417. I'll start by going over a brief background on this project, and then we'll look at the report recommendations, followed by an overview of the Maitland Bridge details and some of the city's future plans for this area. Next slide, please. So within the next 5 years, the MTO plans to replace 4 bridges where Richmond Road, Pinecrest Road, Woodruff Avenue, and Maitland Avenue cross Highway 417. This section of the highway really divides several urban neighborhoods and currently acts as a barrier for cycling and walking across the highway to access several destinations like future Stage 2 LRT stations, the Pinecrest Creek and Experimental Farm pathways, and several communities and schools that are on opposite sides of the highway. So improved active transportation facilities at all 4 of these interchanges are identified in the city's 2023 Transportation Master Plan. And the city has been advocating the province to improve the cycling and walking connections through these interchanges for some time now. Chair Tierney and Mayor Sutcliffe have both already sent letters to members of the provincial government and their staff asking for better cycling and walking connections. And as a result of these efforts, the province has agreed to include the city's requested active transportation facilities at all four of these bridge replacements. And even better than that, the province has agreed to include them on Richmond, Pinecrest, and Woodruff at no additional cost to the city. So the MTO will be covering the costs of facilities on those structures. For Maitland, however, significant widening was required to accommodate the city's request for cycling facilities. So in order to accommodate what we asked for, the province is requiring the city enter into a cost sharing agreement with them, where we will provide the necessary funding for the cycling facilities only. Next slide. So that's what brings us here today. In order for us to capitalize on this opportunity and have the province build the cycling facilities as part of their Maitland Bridge replacement, council approval is required to authorize the general manager of planning, development, and building services to enter into an agreement with the province and to authorize the financial allocation of the city's major active transportation structures program budget to be used to reimburse the province up to a maximum amount of $5.4 million. So I will note these cycling facilities are already identified on the approved 2023 Transportation Master Plan, and there is already the major active transportation structures program budget to fund this work. The reason that additional council approval is required today is so that a capital account can be set up in the meantime, which will allow us to enter this agreement now with the province and capitalize on the opportunity to take advantage of their bridge replacement project. Next slide. So here you can see a cross-section of the proposed Maitland Bridge, which is in line with the recommendations of an environmental assessment completed by the city in 2018. Similar to the current bridge, it includes 2 through lanes per direction and sidewalks on both sides, although those sidewalks are being widened from the existing condition. And the new elements on the structure include the new center turn lane in the middle and the new cycling facilities and buffers on both sides of the bridge. So the MTO is currently hosting a public information center for their detailed design project. It only opened yesterday and is accepting comments until June 5th. So if members of committee or the public have any comments on that project, they can contact the MTO directly through their project website and provide feedback. So here the green arrows they highlight the 2-meter wide cycling facilities and the 0.9 meter wide buffers that are the main topic of discussion today. And those are the elements the city will be responsible for funding. Since these elements account for 20% of the overall bridge width, the city is responsible for 20% of the total realized bridge costs up to a maximum of $5.4 million. So that means that if costs come in under what estimates are expected to be today, or even at what it's expected to be today, it will be slightly less than the 5.4 million, but that's really the top end to put a cap on what the city will be responsible for funding here. And this bridge will have a lifespan of 75 years. So it's very important for us to capitalize on this opportunity today, and it will really facilitate the city's future plans for this corridor. Next slide. I will note that the scope of the MTO's bridge replacement project is limited to the structural span itself. So the MTO was not able to accommodate our requests to expand the scope of their project and include adjacent cycling connections leading up to this bridge. So that means that the new cycle tracks on the structure itself won't be able to open right away. To minimize the amount of time that they're closed, however, the city has already started a functional design project to look at making these adjacent connections and open these facilities as soon as possible after the MTO finishes their construction. So we're not able to enter immediately. The MTO contractors will have control of the site, but once they're done, we're hoping to have design plans ready where we can go in as quickly as possible and make these facilities usable. So to wrap up, I'll reiterate that we are seeking council approval to enter this agreement with the MTO to capitalize on the opportunity to build these cycling facilities on the Maitland Bridge now as part of their ongoing project. Making the most of this opportunity now will allow for city plans to proceed much more efficiently and at a much lower cost to the city. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. So at this point, we'll go directly to Ms. Harper, you have 5 minutes for your delegation today. I'll just wait to make sure your camera's on. Hello, Diane. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. We really applaud, so I'm Diane Harper from Bike Ottawa, and we really applaud the city for asking the province for cycling infrastructure on these bridges. And we appreciate that it is part of the 2023 Transportation Master Plan, and glad to see it's taking shape. The 417 is a major barrier for mobility in the city, as the staff mentioned, and the crossings are few and far between. So it's really important to keep in mind that we don't know what the demand for these facilities will be until we actually build them. And we're looking for examples of this at William Commanda Bridge, where when it opened last fall, saw 30,000 crossings in its first week, or other bridges like the Adawe Crossing, Corktown Bridge, and Florafoot Bridge, all of which have far exceeded expectations from when they were first proposed. And we're hoping to add the bridge at Vincent Massey Park to this list as well fairly soon. We're really pleased to see that the plans are for physically protected infrastructure. It's critical for us to offer people actual physical protection so that they feel safe and can go out with their families to get places. In terms of connectivity, however, as was mentioned, there is still some gaps, and for the bike lanes to be usable, this is really, really paramount. The cycling infrastructure in that area disappears, and people suddenly find themselves in car traffic. So connectivity is key with Maitland as well. South of the bridge, the facility should be continued at least to Garfield Avenue and connected with the experimental farm. North of the bridge, it should be continued at least to Carling. And in both cases, the facility must remain physically protected. Maitland has 4 lanes of high-speed traffic, and a lot of people are just not comfortable in that. If the facilities are connected this way, the whole area would become much more accessible. And this is particularly true if Councillor Devine's hopes to turn Maryvale into a complete street are realized, and that's something we wholeheartedly support. We know the committee has received submissions from a number of people who do cycle across there and have views about it. We're also concerned that the current plans are excessive. We understand that the 5th car lane will be added, and it seems unnecessary as the area isn't particularly congested. And this goes a little bit to the question about whether or not something is needed. You don't know until it's there, but traffic is like air. It expands to fill the space, and it can also be contracted. If you build it, cars will come. So some of or all of the car lanes could be reduced to 3.25 meters from 3.5, which would allow for improved separation between car and biking facilities and wider sidewalks and biking facilities. We're not sure who called for these oversized facilities, whether it was the city or the MTO. So if it's the MTO, we would ask that you work with them to approach, to get a more sensible width. And this would make things safer for everyone, including drivers, because it slows the traffic down and keeps people safer. And that would also reduce the cost of the bridge because it wouldn't need to be widened as much. And that money could go a long way to making the high volume intersections safe, so that the staff identified in 2021. So to conclude, we strongly support the project, but we want to make sure the planned facilities aren't isolated and unconnected from the existing network. And we think the current plans are overbuilt and more space could be made for people walking and biking. Thanks very much.
Great. I see a question from Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much, Diane, for coming out today, and thanks to Bike Ottawa for their support. This is a big move, and we're very proud of it. Worked very closely with Councillor Johnson on this, and I want to give a big shout out to a former employee, Zlatko, who actually was the one who brought this to our attention and pushed for this, that because of the time pressure that these overpasses were going to be done. I just wanted to get your comments on the connectivity, and I appreciate your raising that. Also about on and off ramps, which is my concern, that when you're crossing the bridge, people are going, cars are going on and off. And I don't know if Bike Ottawa has any recommendations on that.
I am not the person to speak to that because I'm not the technical expert, but we do have views about the on and off ramps. They are absolutely dangerous. We would like to see them minimizing the slip lanes as much as possible so that there's not a lot of intersection time. So people have to slow down, make a sharper turn to get on or off the highway. It does force people to look a little bit more carefully and not have as much of an opportunity for conflict with pedestrians and cyclists.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate your support.
I'm looking on my screen, looking around. I don't see any further questions, so I just have a quick question, Diane. Thank you for coming out and your advocacy. And I just want to point out, and I know Councillor Johnson and myself feel very much the same. This is kind of great that we've got MTO on board. I do want to requalify the report that's in front of us. Sure, we can always do bigger and better, but we think this is a pretty big win. And, you know, as a binary answer, is this a yes, you're in support of this is good, or no?
Sorry, was that directed to me?
Yeah, I just want to make sure Bike Ottawa is very happy with this, because I heard the word concern several times, and there's been a lot of work put into this, and I just want to make sure that we're highlighting the positive aspects and all the work that went into this. Would that be correct?
We are happy with this. Are we very happy? That might be a step too far, but we are definitely very supportive.
Well, I'll take on the very happy role then. So thank you. I'll cut you free there, Diane. Thanks for coming out in your advocacy.
Thank you.
We do have questions to staff. Councillor Johnson.
And thank you very much. And as the chair said, you know, I am absolutely delighted with this proposal. I know it's been many years in the works, but it was one of the first things that I took on as an advocacy in an advocacy role when I was first elected, and we were able to work together with Councillor Kavanagh to speak to the mayor's office to engage MTO again, and I'm just really pleased to see this. And I certainly learned a lot about jurisdictional responsibility. I mean, when you look, this is a multi-jurisdictional project that we now see a partnership. I mean, who around the table wants one of those? I mean, everybody wants one of those where they are, right? So I'm quite delighted that we have the Ministry of Transportation coming along. The Highway Traffic Act is a big act, and it really limits the scope of the kinds of things that they are interested or curious or responsible for when it comes to the highway. Even those on-ramps and off-ramps, those belong to the MTO. You can go 100 kilometers an hour. The speed limit of the highway extends the length of the on and off ramps. Did you know that? That's crazy. So when you're talking about creating a pedestrianized crossing across some of those on and off ramps, you are perhaps creating a conflict between a body and someone who is permitted to wind up to 100 kilometers an hour at the top and the end of that ramp. This is the kind of concerns that we were working with as we were doing this advocacy. And so those protected facilities will be really important. But here we have the willingness to invest. I mean, 75 years, I've been quoting 60 years. I was saying when the thing was going to be replaced in 60 years, I might be alive. 75 years, I'll be dead. I'm just going to put that out there right now. And I really want to know that, you know, the kids that I see wobbling across this on their bicycle are going to be able to actually, you know, realize a safe pedestrian crossing for their kids. And, you know, I'll just bring up one more thing. This is a city building project. So this is a transportation network project where we're creating north-south connections. And when we think about who uses our transportation network, we're talking Barrhaven, you know, coming to Bayshore, and they're coming across these bridges. perhaps we're not going to see someone cycle all the way from Barrhaven, unless it's, well, maybe it's Teresa Kavanaugh, maybe it's David Hill, okay? They've got the fitness for it. But what these pedestrian crossings and cycle crossings will do is they're going to get the people in College Ward who are too scared to go across the bridge, to go to Broadview School, to shop at Carlingwood. We're going to be able to have a choice now with the transportation that we use, which is going to get me off the road so that those that are coming from farther away who don't have the same choices can make a different choice of how they want to get around. This reduces congestion. So we're all linked here. And so we will have a choice. It's all about choice, freedom to choose the kind of transportation that we want. So this investment in safe pedestrian and cycling infrastructure will support anyone who wants to get across those bridges, however you do it. So I am delighted. I think we should be really pleased today. It's incremental at best. Sure, yes. And that frustrates many, but for me in this business now, I know that this is a really significant win. So I appreciate, Councillor Kavanaugh. I appreciate very much leadership from the chair and the mayor and the Ministry of Transportation for getting this done. So thank you very much, colleagues, and I hope we have your support today.
Thank you. Someone chopping onions in here. That was great. Thank you. Over a bridge. That's right. Councillor Gower.
Thanks, Chair. This is good news, and I'm going to tell a little story in a second to contrast what we have in front of us here compared to something that happened out in the West End over a decade ago. But I did want to ask staff, because the delegation brought up this asking if the bridge might be overbuilt with the number of lanes or the width of the lanes. Is that something that has been looked at? Could we skinny up the lanes to require less of a structure build out? And are those requirements coming from the MTO or from the city?
Yeah, thank you. So the bridge design itself and the lanes on the bridge are the MTO design, and it's in line with planning policies and their own design standards for an area like this. And the reason that the lanes are wider are that they are accommodating a significant amount of truck traffic accessing the highway, as well as heavy traffic flows. So those lane widths are an MTO standard and not a city request or a city standard.
Okay, thank you. The story I was going to tell was in 2012 or 2013, the MTO replaced a few bridges out in Canada, including the Huntmar Bridge. So the Huntmar Bridge is the bridge that connects basically Tanger Outlets to Canadian Tire Centre. Many of you have probably gone under it or over it. And at that time, nobody identified the need for sidewalks or bike lanes. And the bridge exists now 10 years later with 2 vehicles for traffic, a very, very narrow sidewalk that I don't even think you could call a sidewalk, and signs on either side of the bridge that say no pedestrians. If you don't address these things when the build happens with MTO, it takes a long time and a lot of money to address it. We finally have a pedestrian crossing and cycling crossing at that point in our city plans. But it's likely not going to happen until 2031 or later, almost 2 decades after that bridge was replaced. So I'm glad to see this new collaborative approach between the city and MTO for these bridges. I'm still a little bit confused how we're still being asked to pay $5.4 million. It's a relatively small amount, but the MTO does have a yearly capital budget this year of $8.1 billion. And, it always mystifies me that when you look at these big provincial transportation capital budgets, to add a little bit more is such a small fraction of what they're spending. For us as a city, 5.4 million is quite a bit, in terms of our budget. But anyways, glad to see this change of approach and cooperation between the city and the province, and hope we can see more of this to get cycling and pedestrian facilities built as quickly as possible over the highway. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Really appreciate that. Councillor Kavanaugh, Devine, and Lowe, and Johnson. Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much. And I hope it's not misinterpreted that I'm not enthusiastic about this. And yes, I've cycled to Barrhaven. Who hasn't? I mean, really. But no, these bridges are important. In fact, my kids used to go to Putman way back. And I lived on the other side of the Queensway, and I sent them off on their bikes, the cruel mother I am. And they had to go over these. So, I did get a phone call one day because my son got bumped by a car. He was fine. He's fine. But it scared the hell out of me. So that stuck in my brain. I'll tell you, it was Maitland. Yeah, it's time to get this done. And again, I have to give thanks to city staff. At the time, it was Latko Kristiff, who brought this to our attention that these were coming up, and this is the time to do it. And as Councillor Gower said, that wasn't done in the past. You got to take these opportunities, and I really appreciate it. So we're doing it, and this is absolutely essential. I just want to ask about what is being done on on and off ramps, what work we're doing in protection, and I'm aware that that is MTOs, but is there anything that we can do to make it safer for pedestrians and cyclists?
Thank you for the question. Yes, we're working very closely with the MTO right now on how we're going to get the best possible connections. And I agree, we want to make these connections as safe as possible. So it still remains to be seen exactly what the treatments on ramp crossings and what the exact connections are going to be. Our goals are to connect to Lannister Ave on the north, providing access off Maitland into the quieter residential neighborhood streets. Similarly, on the east side to the Rex Ave and Ernest Ave streets, which will provide connections up to Carling. As far as the design standards for the interchange itself, because it is all on MTO property and it is an MTO asset, we have to work within their design standards, but city staff are leading the functional design project and working in collaboration with the MTO to make sure that it's in line with their standards and get the best and safest possible connections.
Thank you, and I'm glad you mentioned about the connectivity. What is the timeline on the connectivity to match up? This bridge is coming in next year, but what is the timeline on improving the connectivity?
So we're in the functional design process right now, and we'll still need to complete a detailed design. And it will depend on the MTO's construction schedule. So as of today, the MTO plans to do the majority of their work in 2026, and our goals are to go in the following year, 2027, to make these connections. So timelines are still remain to be confirmed. There's still things that have to be ironed out, and MTO has to proceed with their construction project, and we won't be able to proceed until after that. But that's our current plan.
Thank you. I appreciate the city taking this on and that we're putting in the 5 million. Though I have to say I'm disappointed with MTO for not recognizing that they should be doing this and it should be part of it, as Councillor Gower was saying. So it's unfortunate, and at least we don't have that issue with the other overpasses. So that's good news. But it's a huge step forward, and thanks to my colleague, Councillor Johnson and I. She just got elected, and we tore down to the mayor's office to raise this because we saw the timeline, and thank the mayor for recognizing that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Devine.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to that 5.4 million that we wish the province would chip in, I guess we could just invoice that department that manages the $8 billion budget and see if they just mistakenly pay it. We can try that. So thank you, Chair. So this is a very, very exciting project. I'm so grateful to see this. I absolutely want to thank my colleagues, Johnson and Kavanaugh, for their work on this. When I saw the scope of the project, beyond just being excited about Maitland, I'm really, really excited about the scope of the project, those 4 spans, east to west. And if I understood correctly, to hear that, so yes, we're paying for the cycling facilities on Maitland, but if I understood correctly, MTO is paying for the bridge replacements and new cycling facilities on Pinecrest, Richmond, and Woodruff. Is that correct?
It is correct that they're paying for the facilities on the bridges themselves.
But the cycling facilities on those bridges themselves.
Correct. Yeah, the MTO will be paying for those.
I mean, that's really exciting. And to hear my colleague, Councillor Johnson, talk about all of the important impact that this will have on our north-south corridors, of which I'm in complete agreement. prior to the Highway 417 being put in place, we had natural connectors between north and south, and this work will go back to restoring those natural connectors. And on the Pinecrest side, which is closer to at least my ward, I'm absolutely excited about that. At the same time, when I hear talk about connecting Barrhaven to Bayshore, while the work that will be done on Pinecrest is certainly good news, the small bad news on the other end of that north-south connector are the challenges that we're having in getting the multi-use path on Greenbank between Fallowfield and West Hunt Club restored. There's a potential 5-year delay on that when that project could and should go forward. So on the issue of having really, really productive jurisdictional conversations between municipal and provincial government, my colleagues, Councillors Lowe, Councillor Hill, and myself are going to be looking to work with staff to have creative conversations with our federal partners, because there really should not be that much of a roadblock on getting the MUP on Greenbank done. And I think we could truly have a lovely connector from West Barrhaven all the way to Bayshore. I just wanted to ask a question on the issue of the connectivity, because from what I understood, you were saying that the scope and scale of our 5.4 million allocation for the Maitland Bridge extends just to the bridge itself, and then any other connecting paths, I think I understood, are the municipal responsibility. And you were saying that MTO, at least for Maitland, MTO's work is going to be 2026, and the city's work on, I assume, other connecting things will be 2027. My question is, has the city already allocated, whether for design or construction, for beyond our 5.4 million, for any of those connecting costs, have we already allocated and confirmed our funding for 2027 and beyond, whether it's for design or construction?
Thank you. Yes, because these projects are approved 2023 TMP projects, the funding would be provided through that program.
Fantastic. And does that mean then, because as I understand it, there would be perhaps, what would be the potential gap in usability for once MTO does their work on the Maitland Bridge and once we complete our work on connectivity to and from the Maitland Bridge? Will there be a gap of usability?
So there are long-term and short-term plans for the Maitland corridor, and what we'd be looking to do is implement that short-term plan, which gets people from one side of the interchange to the other side. So it provides connections to more comfortable residential streets immediately south and north of the interchange itself. So the gap in connectivity would be that we're not adding facilities to Maitland very far north or south of the interchange. And in the interim, people will have to use residential streets to access areas like Carlene and the experimental farm pathway. Ultimate long-term plans for Maitland, in line with city policy, would be to extend those facilities further under a larger project, but that won't be for some time. So we want to take this critical area at the interchange and solve that problem first, and future city plans will address greater connectivity in later years.
Good, thank you. So thank you to staff for this project. Thank you to my colleagues for championing it, and congratulations to you too for being on the project management side of a really historic project. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Devine. I'm looking around the board. I just wanted to again say thank you very much to the mayor's office, to the ministry. I think this is a big deal. Anyone that is around the table knows it's always hard to create those relationships. And I was speaking to Vivi, it reminded me of the fact that way back in the day, a decision was made about Searville Road and buying the futures of widening the bridge, knowing that we didn't have the money for the pathway system. That was a good investment back then. It was $5 million. And since then, I've had the privilege of getting a multi-use pathway installed on Searville Road, creating that connectivity. So we're buying futures. So when I hear it's 5.5 versus 5, I'm not being flippant to say, wow, that's not a lot for the connectivity you're going to get. It's true. If we don't do it now, you won't be able to achieve it in the future. So looking around the table again on this item, is this item carried? Great. Thank you very much. I'm just going to go through the rest of the office of city clerk. Is this item received? We have no in-camera items to date. We have the IPD. We have the use of delegated authority in 2023 by Public Works Department. That was in the agenda. I don't see any hands to speak to that. And then, of course, we have already dealt with the Gower motion, Leaper motion, and we did have an inquiry from Councillor Johnson, and Councillor Johnson's worked with staff, and the response will come back at the next meeting. You can see what the inquiry is within your report. Councillor Johnson, great points. Speed boards are always a big deal, and I'm glad you're able to work with staff. And I've been given assurances that they'll come back to us with a response for the next meeting if you're satisfied with that. Great. So on that, we have no other business. This will be adjournment till June 27th, 2024. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks to staff. Bye.